Did you know that Floyd Mayweather owns a $30 million watch empire? These are watches that cost more than your entire neighborhood. But what happens the day it all disappears? Stick with us, because what dies that day says more about you than it does about Floyd. To understand the fall, you have to first stand inside the empire and feel how heavy it is. Floyd Mayweather didn't just become rich. He became a monument to richness. Undefeated in 50 professional fights, he earned an estimated $1.1 billion in career prize money, making him one of the highest paid athletes in human history. Mayweather called himself the money and then spent every waking moment proving he meant it. The watches were never just accessories, they were declarations. An $18 million Jacob & Co. Billionaire tourbillon, a $1 million Patek Philippe, custom pieces that jewelers built specifically for his wrist because nothing off the shelf was expensive enough. He's been photographed wearing 3 watches simultaneously on both wrists and around his neck. It wasn't because he needed to know the time in 3 time zones, but one watch could no longer contain the statement he was trying to make. And the statement was always the same: I came from nothing, look at me now, you cannot touch this. That statement didn't come from arrogance alone. It came from a childhood in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the lights got turned off and there wasn't always food. It came from a father who trained him in boxing while serving time in prison. What would you expect from a boy who learned very early that the world sorted people into those who had and those who didn't? He made a decision that he would never be on the wrong side of that line again. So when Floyd straps on a $30 million watch collection, he isn't being reckless. He's keeping a promise that he made to himself as a child. But what happens when the money runs out on a promise like that? We all know his spending is legendary, and not in a comfortable way. Aside from the Jacob & Co. and Patek Philippe we earlier mentioned, Floyd has Rolex Daytonas customized in ways that void the warranty before they leave the store. And he doesn't wear them once and puts them away. He said in interviews that he has enough watches to wear a different one every single day for a year, even when he's traveling. That means a closet somewhere in Las Vegas that holds more wristwatch inventory than most authorized dealers carry in a quarter. Each one of these pieces alone could buy a luxury home in most US cities. Floyd has dozens of them stacked in what he calls a closet, but most people would mistake for a vault. Apart from the watches, he has private jets chartered for single trips, hotel floors booked out entirely, a gambling habit that, by his own admission, involves single bets between $400,000 and $1 million. In 2023, reports surfaced suggesting significant portions of his fortune had been depleted faster than the public realized. His promotions company has faced lawsuits, and business ventures have collapsed quietly while the Instagram posts stayed loud. Now imagine the trigger. A failed investment wipes out $200 million overnight. A lawsuit he loses, or even a tax bill the IRS has been building for years, finally lands. We're not speaking an alien language here. Rather, we're talking about the kind of financial earthquake that has swallowed bigger fortunes than his. Take a look at the likes of Mike Tyson, once worth $300 million, who filed for bankruptcy. Evander Holyfield lost his mansion. Even MC Hammer, who once employed 200 people, eventually had nothing left. If this happens, the watches will go first. It's not like Floyd will sell them willingly, but when the machine stops generating, the asset starts moving. And here's where the psychological collapse begins. Floyd's entire public identity is built on visible wealth. Remove the watches, the jets, the stacks of cash he posts on social media, and what remains? A middle-aged man from Michigan who's very good at a sport he can no longer compete in at the highest level. That's not nothing, it's a very different story than the one the watches were telling. Psychologists have a term for what happens to people who build their self-worth entirely around external symbols of success. When those symbols disappear, the self doesn't just feel smaller. For many people, it stops feeling real at all. Could it be that the watches weren't decorating Floyd's identity, but they may have been his identity? Every morning he put on one, it was confirmation that he made it, survived and won. If he were to wake up one morning and find nothing on his wrist, that confirmation is gone. However, the silence it leaves behind is deafening. So, if you're already locked in on this breakdown, do us a favor and smash that subscribe button. There's a lot more coming. Now, Floyd losing his watch empire will put the world in chaos. The first 24 hours, the news will be everywhere. TMZ runs it. Hodinkee writes the think piece. Watch Twitter lose its mind. Reddit threads track each watch as it disappears from his collection. The same platforms that amplified the empire become the courtroom. Not only that, one of his watches, the Jacob & Co. Billionaire, is so unique, if it surfaces anywhere on Earth, every dealer in the watch industry gets a phone call inside an hour. And if the collection went to auction, that's where things get really interesting. Phillips, Christie's, Sotheby's would clear their entire summer calendar to host that sale. The catalogue alone would become a collector's item. Bidders from Tokyo to Dubai would clear their schedules and their bank accounts. A single auction event could move more money in one room than most luxury watch boutiques do in a decade. Even the people who once commented goals under his posts pivot without blinking to, "I always knew it was fake." Can you now see that the pivot is worth examining? Because those same people didn't change, the watch changed, and it reveals something brutal about how we assign worth to human beings. We look at Floyd's wrist and we decide how to feel about him, and by extension, how to feel about ourselves. His rise was our motivation, and his fall became our reassurance. Maybe he wasn't better than us, he just had better jewelry. Then, after some days, influencers who built content around Floyd's lifestyle will stop tagging him. The brands that once chased his endorsement find shinier symbols to attach themselves to. At this point, the entourage will thin out, because entourages are not loyal to people, they are loyal to access, and access requires resources. Actually, this is not unique to Floyd, this is the mathematics of celebrity. It operates exactly the same way whether the name is Mayweather, Tyson, or anyone else who built a public identity on the foundation of things that can be taken away. Here's where we have to stop pointing at Floyd and start looking closer to home. Yes, we all agree that Floyd is an extreme version of something completely ordinary. Most of us will never own an $18 million watch, but most of us have bought something that we couldn't comfortably afford because of how it would make us look. A car that stretched the budget, sneakers that took 3 paychecks, even a phone upgrade that wasn't necessary but felt necessary because of what the old model was starting to say about you in a room full of people with newer ones. We are all in our own proportional way Floyd Mayweather. We are all using objects to tell a story about who we are and living with the low-grade anxiety that comes from knowing those objects can be taken away. The difference is scale, and the psychology is identical. So the real question this scenario forces us to ask isn't what happens to Floyd, it's what happens to any of us when the objects we've been using to prove our worth to the world suddenly disappears. Who are you when the watch comes off? Is there enough identity and self-worth built on something more durable than steel and diamonds to survive that morning? It's undeniable that Floyd built his empire from nothing once. The question of whether he could do it again is almost beside the point. Rather, we should be asking, would he? Well, he could. Almost certainly in financial terms. The Mayweather name still carries enormous commercial weight, exhibition fights, promotions, and the academy he runs for young fighters. However, what would be different this time is that the watches he'd buy back wouldn't mean the same thing. The first collection was built on a boy with nothing, proving something to the world. The second collection will be built on recovery, and recovery, however impressive, never generates the same electricity as the original rise. That's the cruelest part of this whole scenario. You can replace the watches, but you cannot replace what the first ones meant. So, would you rather own $30 million in watches that nobody sees, or one $80 million watch the whole world knows belongs to you? Drop your answers in the comments down below. And if you want to see what happens when another Flex King built his entire empire around a single brand, our Jacob & Co video is on screen right now. Click it and we'll see you there.